I'm going to talk a little bit for a few minutes about our theme today. Hi, Elaine. So, because many of us have some sort of pain in our body, but a really popular spot is the lower back. So, I am dedicating today to yoga for lower back pain, and then I have a handout I'm going to email you afterwards of 4 poses. So I'm going to teach the 4 poses in class, I'm going to give you the handout, and then if you do suffer from lower back pain, you can practice these 4 poses on your own. One of them you can do standing as a break at lunch, for example, against a wall, and then I think the other 3 are on the floor. You can do them in bed at night. Your bed can be a yoga mat. So that's the theme for today. And I also thought maybe the mindful attitude could be acceptance of the aging, saging body, because as we get older, many of us get some sort of aches or pains that percolate up. And I thought maybe we could work with this attitude of just accepting that as the natural process of the aging body, because so often we get frustrated and are in a bit of denial and we're angry at our bodies. And I thought today we would just, if there's some pain, to maybe explore just being with it a little bit and softening into it. Because when we resist pain, our body contracts, our muscles tighten, and it actually makes it worse. The best thing for pain is to just actually slowly breathe into it, I think. So yes, yoga for lower back pain. So we're lying down, and the first thing for lower back pain is that for some people, lying down with the legs straight already puts a little pressure on the lower back. So putting a blanket or pillow under your knees can be helpful, or bending your knees and letting the knees collapse into each other. It's called constructive resting pose. It looks like this. And especially after the yoga class, if you feel like your back is a little tender, this is a great way to do Shavasana. So welcome to our new start time. Let's just settle into the mat, and we're still working on our breath, even inhales and even exhales. So I invite you to just pick your count, either a count of 4, 5, or 6, usually works for people, and inhaling for that count, and then slowly exhaling for the same count, and just observing what that does to your nervous system. And this is also a good tool for when we experience pain. We can just drop into that even breath and dedicate that breath to the area that's feeling either tension or throbbing or itching or pulsing, any of those wonderful sensations that tell us we have very alive bodies. And if you want to do a quick little scan through your body right now and identify maybe some areas that are feeling tender this morning, or maybe a little tense, or maybe your body is just feeling very neutral. Maybe you're feeling tired, maybe you're feeling energetic. It all belongs, but just noting it with a kind curiosity. Throwing out the welcome mat to whatever shows up today, whatever your body is presenting you with, and making a resolution to honor those aches and pains and just being extra gentle with them today. So choosing appropriate modifications, variations. We'll take a few more breaths here. And wiggling your toes and hands. And the first yoga stretch is yours always. How would you like to stretch this morning? What would feel good for your body? And just exploring sensations. Every morning a new body shows up. What body has shown up today for you to work with? And bending the knees a little bit and grabbing the opposite elbows. Now, if you have SI joint pain, then you're only going to go to 30%. The knees drop one way, the elbows drop the other way. Just going really slowly. And you know, on one side I can feel my SI joint or lower back or something kicks in, so I don't go any further, and I encourage you to do the same thing. So just gently exploring, dropping elbows in the opposite direction of the knee. Good. And then grabbing a block with your hands or a book. We're just going to push on the block and drop the block back and behind and then up to the ceiling. So we're waking up those adductor muscles in our arms. And the hands don't go all the way to the floor. So you want to keep the arms firmly in their sockets. So remember, that was our theme one session. Reaching out to pull in or pulling in to reaching out. So the arms are reaching out, but they're still firmly in their sockets. And that's what the joints like. So just waking that up and then doing some designs, maybe the infinity sign with the block. And if you don't have a block, just pretend you're holding a block. So you just kind of create your own tension. And you can do circles one way, circles the other way. We're just going to juice up that shoulder joint a little bit before we get into the hips. And then you can try dropping it to one side, getting a stretch to the deltoids, and then dropping it to the other side. Good. And then we're going to put the block in between our knees, the medium width, and the arms can go into cactus pose if that's comfortable for you, just to stretch out those pectorals. If that's not comfortable, go into A-frame arms. We're going to squeeze that block, bring up all the toes. Let's bring one toe down and the next, so that we have firmly planted feet in the floor. We're going to squeeze the block, we're going to squeeze the buttocks, and then inhaling the block up and exhaling back down. So inhaling, squeezing into the midline with the knees, the buttocks engage, and then exhale back down. Let's do that a few more times using your breath. The even inhales coming up, the even exhales going down. So I'm going to focus on buttocks and the psoas muscle today and the transverse abdominis, because those are all things that help stabilize the core so that we're not overusing the back muscles. We want these muscles to help out the back because the back is overused, over fatigued often. So we want to recruit these synergist muscles to help out more. All right, so next we're going to remove the block and we're going to just lift one leg up and then dip it down into the pond and then bring it back up. So we'll do that a few times. So just waking up the transverse abdominis, the rectus abdominis, but more on one side than the other, and then we'll switch over. Notice the more you reach out your heel, the more work it is. And now try the other side. And just notice if there's a difference. Now, if my SI joint is a little more fussy on this side, so I'm not going to dip the heel all the way to the floor. I'm just going to go down a few inches and up a few inches. So as soon as you kind of get that twingy feeling, or, you know, muscle fatigue is good, but joint twinging we want to kind of avoid, because one side of the body is not always like the other. All right, next, let's bring the legs up and squeeze those legs together. So we're gonna bring the shoulder blades in really nice and close, but still comfortable. The arms are either in cactus or A-frame, palms facing up. We're gonna anchor the shoulders into the ground and the arms into the ground. We're gonna squeeze the legs, and then we're gonna just come over no more than 45 degrees, squeezing the knees together, the ankles together, and then coming back up. And we're going to do 3 times on one side. Trying to keep a neutral spine, so not letting those ribs pop up. They sometimes do. And also getting a nice little buttock massage when I go over to the side. So you're going to do 3 on one side, and then you're going to do 3 on the other side. And decide how you want to coordinate your breath. So remember the even inhales, the even exhales. Which way do you want to inhale? Which way do you want to exhale? All right, so now I'm going to do an add-on for the neck. So let's come back into, sitting upside down in a chair. So now we're going to go 3 times to one side, and our head is going to turn with our knees. So it's just going to be a little bit of a neck release. So 1, squeezing the knees together, letting the head drop to the side. 2, so knees and head, same direction. 3. Now we're going to do the other side, so the head's going to drop in the direction of our knees, just 45 degrees. So everything's just going 45 degrees. We're going to try to keep the shoulders and arms on the ground. That's our anchor. And there's the third one. Okay, we're going to do one more round. You can rest. You don't have to do this last round. For the last round, my head's going to go in the opposite direction of the knees. So my knees are squeezing together, going in one direction. My head's dropping in the other. And then coming back up. We're going to do that 3 times, the same direction. And that's just to release the neck a little bit. And once again, noticing, is one side resisting the twist? And if it is, then honor that, not going as deeply. So although people with SI joint pain, and then 3 on the other side while I talk a little more, people with SI joint are discouraged from doing asymmetrical poses, but because we're engaging core muscles, this one can often be okay for people with SI joint pain, as long as we don't go too far, not more than 45 degrees, and maybe less than 45 degrees. All right, and now we get to rest. So hugging our knees to our chest. So that's a stretch to the lower back. It usually feels good. And then I like to rock side to side also in this one and massage the muscles on the side. And let's throw in that little hamstring stretch. Let's say hello to the hamstrings. And we can point and flex the feet here. We can do circles. Let's wake up those ankles. I'm just holding the backs of my thighs. Your knees can be bent or straight depending on what kind of flexibility is available to you. You can do flutter boards. You can wiggle your toes. And then from there, we're going to go into laughing babies. The knees are going to bend, and you can grab your ankles or wrap your fingers around your feet or your calves, whatever's available. I like to rock side to side. And you can play with your feet. make designs. You're just dropping into that even exhale, even inhale. All right, so next, this is a new one. It's on the handout. I'm going to ask you to stretch out one leg. Well, let's do our right knee first. I usually don't like to do right and left because we get mixed up, but I want to start with the ascending colon. So let's grab our right knee, interlock our fingers around our right knee. If that doesn't work, you can interlock your fingers around the back of your thigh, by the way. All right, and then flex the opposite foot. The extended leg is flexed. All right, so I want you to make a psst sound, like, hey, you over here, psst. And notice when you go psst, what muscles kick in. Psst. That's your transverse abdominis that's tensing. Psst. So we can wake up that muscle just by making sounds, which is kind of cool. Psst. Psst. All right, so now, while we make the psst, this sound, we're gonna push into our hand. So it's gonna be release, push into the hand, psst, and release. And it doesn't have to be a big push. Psst. All right, now there's another add-on. So as we psst and push in our knee into our hands, we're gonna lift the opposite leg. Ready? Psst, and pause. Now we're gonna lower the leg and psst, again, ready? Psst. We're gonna do that 2 more rounds. So remember, we're pushing our knee into our hand and release. Okay, again. And release that leg, shake it out. And just notice, how is that for your back? How is that for your SI joint if you have SI joint pain? All right, and we'll do the other side. So now that knee comes into the chest. We wrap our fingers around the knee or the back of the thigh and make sure the hips are squared. Did one hip hike up? The left hip probably wants to hike up, but we're gonna resist that a little bit. So squaring the hip. So when the left hip wants to hike up, just pull the right hip up a little bit to meet it. All right, and then we're gently pushing our knee into our hand. So we're gonna do 3 psst, and each time we're gonna push that knee into the hand. Ready? Psst. And again. Psst. And one more time. Psst. All right, now we're gonna add the leg raise. So flexing the opposite leg, and let's do a nice slow one though. And down. Back up. You don't have to psst as loud as me, by the way. One last one to do. And last one down. All right, and shake out that leg. All right, so although that's asymmetrical, that one should be okay for the SI joint because we're engaging a lot of muscles that are used to stabilize the SI joint. So I know there's a few people with SI joint pain, and I'm hoping that one was all right for them. All right, so I want to revisit one we did last week, which was cobbler, but pushing our feet into each other and to engage those adductors. And then remember, we kind of did this inhale up 30 degrees, exhale down, inhale up 45 degrees maybe, exhale down. So we're just kind of doing different patterns, inhaling up, exhaling down, but the whole time we're pushing our feet into each other. So this is called eccentric stretching. It's where we stretch the muscle at the same time as it's contracting. And it's a very healthy type of stretching to do. And then if you want to bring it up a notch. You can lift your hips 1 inch off the ground and then try it. So now there's even more working. The buttocks are working, the inner thighs are working. And then you can hold at 45 degrees and just hold and push the feet into each other and just breathe into that and just feel those adductors working super hard. But not too hard, so not 100%, right? 75% is good. And then let's release back down. And then let's do some butterflies. Let's just release and relax now. Noticing if one knee is higher than the other, is one hip a little fussier, tighter? Which baby is fussier, the left side or the right side? Good. And then we're going to turn onto the right side. I just want to revisit some of the asanas that we've been working on. And you can put a block under your head or just use your hand under your head. So our legs are at a 45 degree. Our ankles are either kissing or they're flirting. So the ankle is 1 inch above the other ankle. It's flirting with the ankle. So either kiss or flirt, and then inhale that knee up. And then exhale back down. So we're getting into the glute here. We're also still working on external rotation. So the glutes are critical in supporting the back. And I invite you when you're walking upstairs to think about using your glutes. And it's also healthy for your knees to use your glutes. It gives the knees a break, it gives the back a break. When we squat, we should be squeezing our glutes, going up and down stairs, engaging the glutes. All right, and now we're going to do circles. So I like to put my hand on my hip to make sure that hip is not moving around too much. And the other way. And then lifting the leg a little higher. So now there's one, our ankles have had a fight, their first fight. So they're pretty far apart, they're 1 foot apart, and the knee dips down, but the ankle stays away. And so we're working on internal rotation, and we're strengthening also the muscles in our pelvis area that allows for rotation. And I'm starting to really feel the muscles in my pelvic region firing up, especially my buttock. All right, good. Let's take a break here. I like to pat my muscles a little bit when I've been working them or punch them a little. It just sends blood to them. It feels good. All right, and then we did piston pumps, so I want to revisit that also. See, these are all postures we can do in bed. I'm going to do a bed yoga class one time where we're all poses we can do in our beds in the morning and at night. All right, piston pumps. So our knee comes into our chest, less than 45 degrees, and then flex that foot and kick out to a 45 degree angle. And then knee to chest, and then kick out. Now, decide whether do you want to inhale the knee to the chest or exhale the knee to the chest. So play with that, be curious about the breath. What would help facilitate this movement for you? And slowing it down. Good. And we're going to do the other. Wow, that's fatigued. Drop into that side compared to the other side. We're going to stretch this out, don't worry. After we contract our muscles, we're going to stretch always. Okay, so you can either turn away from me and just roll over to your other side or spin around like I am if you want to keep your eyes on me. All right. So hand on hip. Are the hips stacked? Because my top hip always wants to pull back. I don't know about you, so I have to kind of nudge it forward so that they're stacked. All right, so ankles are either touching or they're hovering, one or the other. We inhale up and we exhale down. Let's use our even count inhales
And an even count exhale. The slower we go, the more challenging it is. Let's do one more here. Let's make this one extra gooey. And then some circles. So we're trying to work with the hip joints in all the ways it moves, right? Up and down, rotating in and out. Circles. And then the other way. And then raising that leg about a foot off, approximately a foot, and then just dipping down the knee. So now it's the knees that are flirting. Ooh. I really feel this one in my buttock. This one's a lot of work for my hips. My buttocks. Oh, okay. And let's give it a rest. Let's just take a breath here before we do our piston pumps. Dropping into sensation. All right. So the knee comes up towards the chest, but keeping a neutral spine, and then kicking out, extending the leg, that little hamstring stretch. Inhale, come up. Keeping a neutral spine, right? So we don't want to curl our spine when we bring the knee up towards our chest. We want the hips to stay stacked, one on top of the other. So trying to be very static here, just the leg, just one leg is moving. Everything else is very still. And let's do one more. Ooh, okay, good. Let's roll onto our backs here. So I want to stretch out the buttock muscles here. So let's place both hands on our hip bones, and we're going to see if we can cross one ankle over the other knee without those hip bones jiggling around too much. We want to keep them aligned, squared. All right, and now we're going to use our abdominal muscles to get that heel up, but keeping the hips somewhat aligned, flexing both feet. Now I'm already feeling the stretch in my right buttock. If you want more of a stretch, place one hand on one thigh, place one hand on the other thigh. And with the hand on the bent knee, push it away. Oh, with the other hand, sorry, wrap around the thigh and pull the thigh towards you. So we're pushing away the knee that's closer to us and pulling the thigh that's further away closer to our body. So pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. But that's only if you need more intensity, and if you have SI joint dysfunction, pain, I wouldn't do this because it's not symmetrical stretching. And release. Okay, let's try the other one. So both hands on our pelvis, slowly lifting the ankle, crossing it over, trying to keep those pelvic bones as best aligned as we can. And then pushing that bent knee, the knee that's closer to you, just even now energetically push that knee further away, so that's external rotation. Now for the stretch, we're gonna use our abdominal muscles to get that foot off the ground. Neutral spine, so we don't want our pelvis to tilt one way or the other. We want that neutral spine as much as we can always. Good. Now, is this enough or do you need more? Do you need to wrap your fingers around the thigh that's further away and pushing your palm into the thigh that's closer? So pulling one thigh closer, pushing the other thigh further away. Check in with your SI joint, your lower back. Is everything happy? And then breathing. and release. All right, so we're going to practice getting up safely, especially if you have lower back pain, SI joint pain, our knees are together, our ankles are together. We roll over, keeping those knees and hip bones aligned the whole time, pushing our hand into the floor and getting up safely. All right, let's do some chest circles. We've done a lot for the hips. Let's just wake up the chest a little bit and the shoulders a little more. And just exploring. So I like to extend through the spine for the first half of the circle and then hold on to the knees, and then I'm just curving the thoracic spine, not the lumbar spine. So extension and then curling, protracting those shoulder blades. And the other way. And then once again, like dropping into, since we're talking a lot about SI joint and lower back, just dropping into that, how's that going? Or maybe it's showing up in your knees, the hips, the back. What's going on today? Good. All right, so alternate nostril breathing. We've been working on this one, so we're going to go for a longer hold today. And you can make up your own. So remember, we start and end with the left nostril. So it's inhale, hold, switch, exhale, right. Inhale, right, hold, switch, exhale, left. That's one round. So you can follow my count. You can make up your own count. All right, so I'm going to inhale for 5, hold for 10, exhale for 10. All right, ready? Sitting up nice and tall and proud. Inhale, left nostril, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, left. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The next 2 rounds are on your own. Play with the count. Maybe you want to hold the breath for 15. Or maybe you want to hold it for 5 breaths. Or maybe you don't want to hold the breath at all. See if you can use this time to do a little meditation, really just anchoring on the breath, filling up one hemisphere of the brain, visualizing that hemisphere, and then visualizing the other hemisphere of the brain when you're working with the other side. We're going to finish our last round. You know you're finished when you're exhaling through the left nostril. And once you're done, just take a few regular breaths and check in with yourself. How was that? Does your body resist holding the breath? Does it enjoy the challenge? Does it make you anxious? Do you feel it was calming? It's all just information. All right, fingers. Someone's talking about their hands today. Let's work on the hands a little bit. So we're all typing and zooming a lot, so just even shaking them sometimes. Pumping the wrists sends blood to your wrists and revitalizes them, so that's good to do. And then my favorite is wrapping my fingers around my thumbs, squeezing, and then doing
circles and just really stretching up the fascia in the top of the hand. And the other way. And for an extra stretch, folding that hand down, and with the other hand, just kind of maybe flexing that hand a little more so that you get this stretch here. And then the other side. Oh, good. And then just pulling on each of our fingers. And then we're going to strengthen these finger muscles too. So let's do blinking lights. And then, you know what, we can multitask here. Let's lubricate those shoulder joints. So we're going to work the fingers and get some synovial fluid flowing in our shoulder joints the other way. So I can now start to feel my fingers getting fatigued. Good, and then pulling those fingers back. I love this stretch. Ah. And then pointing the fingers down and pulling them back. Other side. Ooh, so tight. I think that's gardening also. Oh. And then interlocking the fingers and doing the figure eight. And the opposite direction feels a little weirder. And then let's end off with gorilla arms. So flexing our hands, fingers pointing towards the shin, leaning forward, and gently putting weight onto the hands. That's the little hand workout. Good. All right, so let's do bringing the arms out to the side. Let's just work on those rotator cuff muscles a little bit. So opening and closing the door jamb. And then pushing the walls of life away. Those COVID walls that are starting to close in on us. All right, and then maybe a little baby twist one way, baby twist the other way. Triangle arms one way, triangle arms the other way. Ah, good. And then scooping one elbow underneath the other. So you're either here, self-love, or half eagle arms, or full eagle arms. So we're gonna hug the arms into their joints, but rise up the hands. So hugging in to reach out. So the arms hug into their joints, but the fingers reach up. Good. And then you can do some windshield wipers and play with this a little bit, explore what's going on. Oh. All right. And then I like to go in for the final squeeze where everything's hugging into itself. And this is where we're strengthening the muscles around the joints. 3, 2, 1. Now, don't release yet. I want the elbow that's on top. Can you, how does it work? Hold on. Yeah, the elbow that's on top straightens. And then we pull that straightened arm over and across. It's an extra deltoid stretch. And I feel that right down my side too. Okay, good. And then back to center. Note which elbow's on top and switch it up. So you're either here or you're here or you're here. So arms hug in to the joint, hands reach up, hugging in to reach up. I like to take a breath first, and then when you're ready, if you want, you can start squirming around, exploring nuances of the pose. And once again, collecting information. Notice that if you bend forward, does that show up in your lower back? Does it feel unpleasant, pleasant? So for stretching, we really want it to feel pleasant. And if it doesn't, it's just our body saying, hey, back off a little. Encourage you to moan and sigh and groan. And then coming up for the final hug, strengthening those muscles. So hands pulling into each other, wrists pulling into each other, elbows, shoulders pulling in. Okay, and then the elbow that's on top, we're going to extend that arm and then bring it over and across to get the bonus deltoid stretch. Breathe into that deltoid. And release. Let's roll the shoulders one way, other way, and 3 sighs. Inhaling the shoulders up. Inhaling up. One more. And coming on to the hands and knees. All right. So this is your minute again. So deciding how your body wants to stretch. Cow, cat, downward puppy, upward dog, wag the tail, chest circles, so many options, but let your body choose. So I bet you just close your eyes and freestyle it. Alright, so time's up. Coming back into tabletop, I'm just going to work a little bit more on the abdominals, core strength. Fingers wide apart. Weight a little more on the thumb and forefinger rather than the outside of the wrists. And so trying to keep those hip bones squared and aligned, extending one leg. And what often happens is that hip wants to come up. So resisting that urge as best you can, flexing that foot will give you a hamstring stretch, and then pulling up on the belly button will make sure that you're not collapsing into the lumbar spine. And then you can just tap the toe to the floor and bring it back up. And as soon as you do that, the hips become unaligned. So just really focusing on trying to keep those hips square. So we're working on the buttocks here, the erector spinae back muscles are working a little bit. And just nice and slow. The slower we go, the harder it is. That's why we tend to speed through these movements, because it's actually harder if it's slower. All right, then the second option is to slowly extend the opposite hand, looking at the floor. So remember, we hug in to reach out. So the thigh bone and the arm bone hug into the joints. The fingers and the heel reach out. Hug in to reach out. And take a breath here. Try to keep the hips aligned. Now there's one more option here, which is bringing the elbow to the knee, nice and slow like molasses, and then stretching it back out. Bringing the elbow to the knee, and then stretching back out. So lots of options. Choose one that's good for your energy level, for your SI joint, for your back. All right, and then we get a little break. We're going to do a downward puppy stretch. I like to put a block under my head for downward puppy. Some people like to get their forehead all the way to the floor. So hands stretch out, The heart reaches towards the floor, the forehead ends on the high end of the block, the middle end, the low end, or the floor. And if you push the hands into the floor, you'll feel it in your shoulders a little bit. All right, so this is downward puppy, and from here we're going to go into wide-legged child's pose. So you're going to spread your knees further apart, the feet are going to touch. If you can, you're going to sink your hips to your heels if your knees allow. And I like to, you can make a double fist and just rest here. Or some people like to bring the hands by the ankles and rest the elbows on the floor with the forehead on the floor. That's a lot of flexion for the knees though, so careful. And take a few breaths here, drop into that even inhale, that even exhale. All right, and then slowly coming up to tabletop because we have to do the other side. If your wrists are feeling a little tender, remember that you can use 2 blocks and put your elbows on the blocks like this. So if this is already too much on your wrists, if you have carpal tunnel or anything like that. Okay, other side. So fingers wide apart, weight in the forefinger and thumb. Engage the triceps here, a little bit of a micro bend in the elbow. And then trying to keep those hips aligned, reaching out with that back leg and flexing that foot, dropping that left, well, whatever hip is rising, can you drop it a little bit? We can hold here, or you can practice dipping the toe mound, the big toe mound into the floor and back up. So if you flex the foot, it just gives you a hamstring stretch. And if you go slow, it's a little harder. All right, so you can just continue with this. If you want to do the add-on, stretch out that leg, square the hips, and then try stretching out the opposite arm. So this is called hunter dog or balancing table or bird dog. And just pull up on the belly button. Sometimes we collapse into the lumbar spine, the lower part of the spine when we do this. So just engage those abdominals. Nice even inhales and exhales. And then the final option, very slowly, bring that elbow in to meet the knee. It might not touch, it probably won't, maybe it will, doesn't matter. Reaching out again. And then in slow motion, bring the elbow back to the knee. All right, and then from here, we're gonna go into a plank or a dolphin plank. So remember, dolphin plank is on your elbows. Plank is on your hands, extending one leg, extending the other leg, hip width apart. All right, so all the joints hug into each other. So just feel the arms hugging into the shoulder joints, the thigh bones hugging into their hip joints. Feel the thighs energetically pulling in towards each other. Feel the arms energetically pulling in towards each other. And then feel the wrists and the feet energetically into the midpoint of your yoga mat. 3, 2, 1. And then from here, going into a downward dog, bringing those knees to the widest edge of the mat, bending the knees as we walk our hands back into a wide-legged squat, resting our elbows on our thighs. And we can just pulse a little bit here. And then putting one hand on one knee, one hand on the other, pulsing a little more here. And then let's pretend we're lifting a ball. So bringing out one arm, bring the other arm. And so when we're lifting, this is the safe way to lift things, using our quads and not our back. Shaking it out. I'm going to change the camera angle a little bit. Okay, so this next posture, once again, is a variation of downward dog. Not everyone can do downward dog because of wrist issues, or they can't get their heart below their head. It's contraindicated for glaucoma. But the other thing that I like about this is you can do this stretch as a break in your day. You need a wall though. So a door, a wall, something flat. And what it is, and so it's a stretch to the psoas muscle. A lot of times people have back pain because their psoas muscle is tight. I don't know if you ever see sometimes with older people, they kind of get pulled forward. That psoas muscle that goes from the inner thigh to the lumbar spine, it goes diagonally, it shrinks and then it pulls people forward. And then this muscle is constantly overstretched and results in back pain. So we want to always keep that psoas muscle stretched and healthy. And if we walk a lot, it gets really tight. So this is a great one to do before, after a walk. We're going to put our hands against the wall and we're going to walk our feet back. And this is already one type of downward dog stretch. Fingers wide apart, the head drops down, ears maybe between the elbows. And I already feel my knees locking out. So remember, when your knees lock out, we pull up on the kneecaps, engage those quads. We don't want the knees locking out. All right, so this is already a bit of a downward dog stretch against the wall, but we're going to add something to it. Now, come up a little more, step 1 foot forward, and in a 45-degree angle, press the toe mounds into the wall. So that foot that's forward is flexed, and now we're getting into a hamstring stretch. Now for me, I need a wider stance, so you have to play with it. I'm going to step back even more for me. All right, and then walk your hands as high up as they comfortably get up the wall. All right, so this is kind of like the same benefits as downward dog, but without the inversion. Now, just like in downward dog, let's press the thumb and forefinger into the floor. And then protract the shoulder blades. So the armpits kind of roll in towards each other. The shoulder blades widen, but then the thumb and forefinger press into the wall. Just like downward dog, pull up on the belly button because we sometimes collapse into the lumbar spine and our ribs pop forward. So nice strong core, neutral spine. Now we have the legs to think about. Scissor those legs in. So pull those thigh bones into their sockets so that we don't hyperextend that back leg or the front leg. So let's pull up on the kneecaps and then breathe. Those are all the steps. Now we're just going to breathe into this. Good. And release. Walk the hands down the wall to right in front of your face. Push off against the wall. And then we can do a bit of a runner stretch here where we bend one knee and the other. And now step the other foot forward. So the back leg, you decide how far away it is. Do you want both feet pointing at 12 o'clock? Do you want the back foot angled a little bit, etc.? You want, okay, so feel stable in this. So you decide where do the legs go to make you feel stable. Walk the hands up the wall, fingers wide apart, and then the ears come between your elbows or somewhere nearing towards that. Pressing the thumb and forefinger into the wall will activate the shoulder area. You'll feel that in your shoulders. All right, pulling up on the belly button, pulling up on the kneecaps, and let's take 3 breaths here. Good. And so we've stretched out our hamstrings, we've stretched out our psoas muscle, and we've stretched out our shoulders, bringing the hands in front of our face, pushing into the wall, taking that foot safely back. We can do one more last downward dog against the wall if you like. I find this feels really good. So this is a nice, good back extension. Now when we're here, imagine your hips pulling away from your hands. So your hands are glued to the floor, but your hips are pulling away so that we get that feeling of space between the vertebrae. And release. Walking the feet closer, coming back up, and shaking it all out. Let's do a bit of a spinal sway. You can do a kidney tap, where you just wake up those kidneys. The kidneys are like here. So you have to kind of tap a little higher than you would think. And then you can tap on your thyroid, like Tarzan. Good. And then let's just do one last crescent moon side stretch. So bringing the legs together, the thighs together. Actually, this is a good one to maybe put the block between the thighs if it's handy. So for me, the toe mounds are together, the heels are about 2 inches apart, and I'm pushing in on that block. If you don't have a block, don't worry. Make a steeple with your hands, so interlock your fingers, get the forefinger up, steeple. Okay, squeezing that block. Let's engage those adductors. And we're gonna tilt one way. And this shoulder, the upper shoulder is going to want to come forward. It's going to want to roll in, but see if you can kind of keep it aligned with the other shoulder. So we're not going to go as deeply. Now, if you have SI joint pain, once again, less is more. Maybe you will do a crescent moon back stretch instead. Okay, and then inhale up. So arms pull into their sockets, hands reach up. So we pull in to reach out. And then on the exhale, we come to the other side. Feet press into the floor. Crown reaches up, arms pull into their sockets, fingers stretch out into the sky. That upper shoulder is we're gonna pull that back 1 inch maybe. And one last thing is pull in the belly button just a little bit so that we don't collapse into the lumbar spine, good. And then inhale up. If you wanna do a little extra bonus crescent moon back stretch, squeezing the buttocks, squeezing the block. So squeezing the buttocks really kind of helps protect the lower back. And release. Okay, we're gonna come back to the floor. So how do you want to get to the floor? Think about smooth transitions. I'm gonna do a half sun salutation. You can maybe go into praying frog, half sun salutation. I'm just gonna stretch up, interlock the fingers behind your back, lock out the arms, look up, come halfway. Come into a squat, hands come into the floor, one leg goes back, the other leg goes back, knees come down, chest to the floor. We're going to end off with locust pose, just to strengthen those erector spinae muscles, putting a block between the thighs if you want, or just squeezing the thighs together. All right, we're going to bring the hands to the floor, shoulder blades pull in towards each other. Shoulders are a few inches off the ground. You're looking right at the floor, not forward, so that the neck stays aligned. All right, so let's just start with the tail. Squeezing the block, bringing the feet up a few inches. How does that feel? Coming back down. Next is the front half of the spine. So inhale, push the hands into the floor. Come up with the chest just 2 inches. Coming back down. How does that feel? So you can either do only the legs or the chest, or you can try to do both. So squeezing the block, bringing up the chest a few inches, hands on the floor, hold, and then the final option of bringing the hands a few inches off the ground. Actually, there's a final option, which is interlocking the fingers, locking out the arms, and going into shark fin. Breathing into the belly. And release. This part's going to feel good. One hand over the other, resting your cheek on your hands, rocking the hips side to side, releasing that lower back with the option of windshield wipers, with the feet wiping to one side, then the other. So notice how the spine, the nervous system really releases after a back bend. I feel very limp after doing a back bend. And then we're gonna have one last one to end off. You need your block. I'm gonna ask you to roll onto your back. And I wanna give us a good quad stretch here. And the psoas again. So we're gonna put the block in the middle of the mat. The idea is, let's see, you gotta play with it. Our knee is gonna come down and rest on the block. So it's somewhere in the middle of the block. So just play with it so that when your knee comes down, it's going to land on the block. Bent knee, by the way. I'm going to change my camera angle. And then I'll explain this pose. It's on the handout that I'm going to send you. Okay, so let's bring our arms out into a T shape. I like the palms up because it brings the shoulder blades in closer together and bring the shoulder blades in closer together. The feet go to the outside edge of the mat, all right? And then play with the block. You can use your feet to move around the block. All right, so drop one knee into the midline until it rests on the block. And you should already feel a stretch in your leg, all right? Now, a few things. Let's keep our shoulders anchored. Let's keep our arms anchored to the floor. The hip's gonna move. And then pull gently the knee towards the bottom of your mat, if that's all right for your SI joint. How does that feel? So you should feel a nice stretch down along your hip flexors, your psoas muscle, and take a breath there. All right, and so think about the knee that's pressing into that block. I don't know whether it's your right knee or your left knee. For me, it's my right knee. I'm gonna try to pull my right lower ribs towards the floor as I press into the block with the knee. That's gonna give me a little more sensation. So the lower ribs of the side, same side as the knee that's on the block, pull towards the floor as the knee pushes into the block. Good. And then slowly inhale up. We'll try the other side. Okay. So now you might have to move the block. I use my feet to kind of move the block a little over. You play with that. And you want the low edge, the high edge, the medium edge, you decide. All right, so now the knees drop to the other side. The inner knee lands on that block. Arms pull into the floor, shoulders anchor into the floor. And as my ribs, and this time I have my left knee on the block, so it's the left ribs that are kind of pulling away from the knee. So think of like the ribs pulling away from the knee. My knee presses into the block, my ribs pull away from that knee into the floor, and you should feel a nice stretch to your psoas muscle. I'm also feeling it in my SI joint on this side, so I'm going to move to the higher level of the block, and I invite you to accommodate the needs of your body also. Taking a few breaths here. And releasing. And what is the last yoga stretch that you would like to do today that would really seal the deal for you? What is your body craving? It might be going straight into Shavasana. It might be laughing baby. I don't know, it might be a hamstring stretch. Or it might be just wiggling in your body, like not even thinking it, just kind of squirming around. And then slowly getting ready for my favorite pose, Shavasana. So once again, you know, for your lower back, it might feel good to have your legs against a wall. It might feel good to have a blanket under your knees. That's what I'm going to choose today. It might feel good to bend your knees. So yoga is all about this pose. It's about getting ourselves into getting all the kinks and tension out of our body so we can go into a deep state of relaxation, and that's when the body can start to heal itself. So nestling into your little feather nest here. Giving yourself a pat on the back for making it to yoga. If for some reason you came at 10:30 because you forgot or missed the email,
No problem. I'm going to send you, if you email me, I will send you the link to today's class and you can start it from the beginning. I'm just wondering if 1 or 2 people forgot and came at 10:30. So I've got you covered. If that happens, send me an email and I'll send you the video for today's class. You can do the whole thing. So since this class was about, dealing with pains and aches and how to address lower back pain, let's just kind of scan through our body here one more time and just notice, what was this class like for our bodies today? Is there any part of the body that's feeling heightened sensation? And not labeling it as good or bad, just like, that's curious. And just smiling into that area. So not, if it's an unpleasant sensation, perhaps resisting the urge to judge it or wish it to go away, but what if we just kind of sat with it and befriended it? And, talking to it like we would talk to a good friend, like, oh, I'm sorry that this is hurting a little today. I'm going to sit here with you and I'm going to breathe into it. And just see if you breathe into that area, if it will release and relax it a little bit, and it might not. And after a few breaths, you might notice that the mind, the attention has wandered, and that's normal. But maybe invite it back to a different body part. Is there somewhere else in your body that needs a bit of attention, a few extra loving breaths sent to it? As the attention wandered, can you invite it back home to your body? Feeling the soft animal of your body. With all its cracks and imperfections. Feeling the aliveness. A few more breaths here. And then slowly, in your own time, very lovingly, bending your knees, kissing your ankles together, and then
in tandem, rolling them over to the side into Baby Krishna fetal position for our poem. So this is a poem by Richard Wagamis from his book of poetry called Embers. It's a poem about the imperfections in our life, the cracks in our body, the cracks in our equanimity, peace of mind, and how do we move forward beyond that. And it incorporates the mindful attitude of acceptance, which was our theme today also. All right, here it is. When there's a crack in my mirror, I can't see myself as I am. All I see is the crack. The crack tells me there is something wrong with me, that I'm not enough, and that this is how others see me too. It's not a question of finding a better mirror. It's about seeing beyond the crack. I am not, nor ever will be, perfect, but I don't need to live for approval. I need to live for acceptance and joy in the unique, worthy, lovable, beautiful, sacred being that I am, and to celebrate the same thing in others. That's seeing beyond the crack. All right, and it's that time, my friends, my fellow yogis. Can you give yourself maybe a big stretch with an arm up to the sky and then pushing that hand into the floor, very safely and lovingly, getting yourself up to a seated pose. Giving ourselves the final salute. Namaste to you.